Hello and welcome to Under the Super Scope, where we take a look at some of the most famous games of all time and try to work out if they still hold up today. And this week we're looking at the sequel to Wind Waker, The Legend of Zelda: Phantom Hourglass. Wind Waker ended with unlimited possibilities. All remnants of Zelda's story were basically torn away. No Ganon, no Hyrule, no Master Sword. They could go anywhere they want or do anything with this follow-up. Then there's the DS, a whole new system that doesn't handle like anything that came before. This is a Zelda game you play entirely with the touchscreen for every single action. Phantom Hourglass could have been one of the most fresh entries in the series, packed with new ideas and a setting to rival Termina. But instead, what we ended up with was something a little safe, derivative, and overflowing with glaring design problems. Phantom Hourglass is not a good sequel to Wind Waker, and in fact, it might just be the worst Zelda game. But let's find out why. While the series was thriving in 3D, Phantom Hourglass took things back to the overhead view, and with it, it introduced level designs more comparable to that of the 2D entries. The controls this view enabled are what's really important though. Throughout the entire game, Link and all his interactions are handled with the touchscreen. If you want to move, drag the stylus around. Want to attack an enemy? Touch them. Want to talk to someone? Simply tap them. It's an innovative solution, and one that works remarkably better than you may expect. Items like the boomerang and the grapple were given new life with the precision of touch, and the result is a solid foundation that would go on to get a far more deserving use in The Legend of Zelda: Spirit Tracks. Phantom Hourglass's greatest problem comes from its puzzle design. This was actually the first game I ever imported from Japan, and I feel this highlighted the underlying issues. The vast majority of puzzle elements in this game come down to reading a far too helpful hint and then simply taking notes. You can take notes at any time by writing on the map, which could have had brilliant effects, but when stones simply tell you what order to press a switch in or order to enter rooms in, it becomes mindless. One could even argue that, by definition, these aren't puzzles. A puzzle is a problem or question that you have to answer using your skill or knowledge, and with the solutions being handed to you, you're just sort of applying someone else's knowledge to solve the problem or puzzle. When playing in Japanese, I of course only have the numbers to go by as I can't read a single word of text, and that's never really been a problem with Zelda puzzle design. Each one relies on visual design to aid the player. To just tell them the solution is hardly a puzzle. In fact, most Zelda dungeons don't have text at all. They use environmental hints, patterns, and items to help the player work out what to do. Even some of the more clever puzzles are completely spoiled by the game. To open up the path to the first dungeon, you have to cleverly break the fourth wall by blowing on these candles. If the game reinforced this blowing mechanic earlier under a different context, this could have been a brilliant revelation for the player to work out. But when you have a stone around the corner telling you to blow, there's not a single inkling of challenge. One way they could have taught this was with the rescue of Astrid earlier on the island. If they had a cutscene where it shows her blowing out torches to open a door, the player would then extrapolate that and try to replicate it themselves. Of course, the microphone isn't a usual input for the DS, and to get players using it, they could have implemented the pulse voice enemy earlier in the game, where just like on the Famicom version of Zelda 1, they don't like loud noises. There's only really one puzzle in the game that I feel doesn't go out of its way to spoil the player, and that's this one right here. Your instruction is to get both sides of the map to touch, which sounds impossible. That is until it clicks with you to close your DS. It's an extremely clever way of breaking the fourth wall, and one of the rare cases where Phantom Hourglass trusts you to work something out on your own. There is a lot of derivative aspects of both puzzle and level design, like how practically every dungeon opens with a small area of puzzle solving that can last anywhere from 20 seconds to a minute, and then bypasses the whole segment with a shortcut back to the lobby. With it being a portable game, there's certainly aspects to be built around the interest of time, but these kind of shortcuts make segments feel utterly pointless. In fact, puzzle solving basically never requires you to visit different rooms. Everything's self-contained in their respective areas and then go on to something new in the next. Overlap is very rare. One of the only exceptions to this was the Ice Temple, where the lobby shortcut was mildly incorporated for puzzles with a switch in the center. You can utilize this twice. In one, you open up the shortcut and then use a bomb tube to flick the switch from the other side of the colored blocks, and in the other, you simply hit the switch before going downstairs, otherwise your path will be blocked by these colorful blocks. It's incredibly basic compared to previous Zeldas, and with this being as involved as puzzles get, this really showcases how weak this game can be. But obviously, you've been waiting for me to talk about the Temple of the Ocean King. This is one of the worst ideas to enter The Legend of Zelda. Let's start off with the basics. The Temple of the Ocean King is a time labyrinth where you need to solve the puzzles of each room before going on to the next. There are guards manning each floor, and if they see you and then hit you, you lose 30 seconds of time. As a one-off dungeon, it's not that bad. The problem is you come back here after the first dungeon, after the second dungeon, after the 3rd dungeon, after the 4th dungeon, and then finally after the 8th dungeon. That's 5 times, and each time you start from scratch again, with more rooms being gradually introduced. Sure, you have new items that can bypass some of the elements, but you'll still be playing the same rooms again and again and again. What's worse is at the start of the game, the core temples last between 10 and 15 minutes. This means it can take about half an hour before going back to the same rooms in the Temple of the Ocean King again and again and again. And it doesn't help that they're visually some of the most boring rooms to ever touch a Zelda game. Want to be surrounded by the same generic grey walls 5 times that drag on far too long? This is the place for you. The pacing of Phantom Hourglass is so poor and predictable, and even the story doesn't tie it all together. Outside of Linebeck, who's legitimately a fantastic character with a brilliant theme to boot, Phantom Hourglass's plot comes down to Tetra is now a generic damsel, go save her by collecting these items. It has the mid-game finale seen in other Zelda games, where you're encouraged to keep going after a 3-dungeon payoff. Apart from, there is no payoff. Most games will grant you the Master Sword after the initial 3-dungeon hurdle, but you don't get the Phantom Sword until right at the end of the game. Your motivation to keep going is simply, oh, here's 3 more dungeons. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of players just didn't finish the game. There's really nothing to keep you going. Sailing to each island isn't exactly fun either. Sure, there's an argument to be made that it wasn't fun in Wind Waker, but they still had a vibe. When sailing through the seas and watching the time of day shift as the music adjusts accordingly, there's a very relaxing feeling to Wind Waker. In Phantom Hourglass though, not only is everything static, but every few seconds an enemy will appear so you can't take your eyes off the screen. You're forced to sit there and watch the world go by as you tap on enemies every 10 seconds. You don't sail as often or for as long as in Wind Waker, but I would not call it better. Even the world map is tedious to navigate. If you try entering the top left portion from the top right portion, you're met with a bunch of annoying rocks that prevent you from going anywhere. So what you have to do is go back to the top right hand portion, down to the bottom right portion, and then to the bottom left portion, and then up to the top left portion where you can finally go to an island. That's just far too many steps to get to one place. This split overworld would later get reused in Spirit Tracks and in Skyward Sword as well, but in all of these instances it feels far too artificial. But at least neither of those games make you repeat content every hour to get to them. There's a lot of bad in Phantom Hourglass, but there are some good parts hiding within. The progression of item tutorials I feel are always really clever. The formula is basically get an item, get locked in a room and figure out how to use the item, fight an enemy with the item, iterate upon a puzzle, and then continually expand until it culminates with a boss fight utilizing the core mechanics of the item and sometimes the dungeon. Let's use an example with the bomb. You need to throw a bomb at the start of the dungeon to cause a chain reaction with all these other bombs and thus hitting a switch. Later we see a similar idea, only there's an element of timing to it now. And then lastly we see the final evolution, which requires 2 precise bomb throws. Bombs are also used to defeat chews with rocks on their heads, and of course open some paths. Much like in A Link to the Past, you can often see other rooms just in the corner of the one that you're in. This gives you indications of hidden walls to bomb. Finding this solution rewards you with a satisfying 100 rupees. There is a problem with this kind of reward though, and that's that it's often undeserved. One puzzle gives me an X on the map in which to dig, but I ended up digging in that spot anyway without paying attention to the X because there was a very obvious part of the ground to dig. So there's a random 100 rupees. And then the Ice Dungeon gives you 2 doses of 200 rupees as a natural progression of the dungeon. They aren't even rewards. Guess where I am in this point of the game with this rupee count? The 2nd dungeon. You can pretty much buy everything at any point in the game and still be loaded. Another area that falls flat is the Goron Temple. The bomb chew item has more use than it does in Ocarina of Time, which is great, but the dungeon introduces an element where you can switch between Link and a Goron. But this segment barely lasts 2 minutes, and it's not brought up again until the boss fight. Said boss fight does incorporate both the Goron and the bomb chews, which I like a lot, but the Goron element feels undercooked. It's not even used with another character like in Wind Waker. This had so much potential though, and I guess it kind of forms Zelda and Spirit Tracks. There's similarities. The boss fight in the Goron Temple is really awesome though, as are a chunk of the bosses. Basically, no matter who you're facing, you always want to look at both screens. Some span them for a neat looking vertical aspect ratio, and others simply use icons that are outside of your vision. The first boss is split into 3 and has clever indicators showing what order to hit them in. And then the Goron boss lets you keep an eye on both players at the same time. Really cool uses. The latter is also used in the Temple of the Ocean King to keep an eye on the phantoms at all times, and I think this works really well. Might be the only thing I like about this place. Well, I like this a little too, where it teaches you that you can get a phantom's attention by making loud noises. Naturally, you'll hit the switch, and they'll come and see what's going on. Cool double objective there. And that's the thing, everything I have to say about the foundation of Phantom Hourglass is nothing but solid. The controls work well, the use of dual screens is great, and the dungeons have their moments of being really clever. That is when they aren't telling you exactly what to do. It's the core design around everything else though that brings it screeching to a halt. There's hardly any personality in this game. Most islands look like this. Most characters don't have character, and some of the music is simply dreadful. Listen to this. Yeah, that's it. Even its better moments come fumbling down. The third boss only has one phase, even though it feels like it should have the usual 3. The clever invisible floor puzzle is reused from A Link to the Past with the beetle intact, only now there's a map showing you exactly where the floor is, so what's the point? You also now carry boss keys around as gigantic items, but they're always like 10 seconds away from the door and there's rarely an intercepting challenge, so why are we carrying them? Spirit Tracks would address this far better in most cases. This isn't to say that taking notes is a bad concept though. The scenario we have to follow a direct path through the fog is well executed, and I like the dungeon that has the overall pattern of up, down, left, right, even if it doesn't really use it that much. Taking notes is great when you find a chest that you can't quite reach, or you find something on the overworld that you suspect needs an item, or if you just want to note down solutions for the Temple of the Ocean King on repeat playthroughs. There's nothing wrong with taking notes, it's just when those notes are the solution provided by the game, it kind of feels like cheating. Phantom Hourglass is unfortunately just one of the most poorly paced Zeldas to be released by Nintendo, and while they could have gone anywhere with the setting, they just kinda took another stab at Wind Waker's world, but with a lesser sense of adventure. Next week we'll be looking at the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks to see just how they took one of the worst Zeldas and elevated it out of its mediocrity. But until then, Phantom Hourglass certainly does not hold up. They translated Zelda excellently to the DS, but the underlying designs just aren't good enough to remain fun. And the Temple of the Ocean King has just about everything going against it. Repeat playthroughs, a timer, having to play slowly, tons of invincible enemies. This just isn't fun one time. It's especially not fun 6 times. But what do you think of Phantom Hourglass? Let us know in the comments below, and of course be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more from Under the Super Scope, including a Spirit Tracks episode next week, and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.